Did you ever think being a woman who wanted it all would be so hard? I didn't either. That's why my guests and I are unveiling the issues and challenging the norms of modern womanhood with the intention of exploring and publicly airing the uncomfortable and the unspoken. No topic is taboo as we search for answers to the questions that most people are too ashamed to ask. Welcome to Single at 30, the manual for the modern woman that we're writing together. So, are you in?
I fully believe that every single person I've ever met has struggled with body image. There's no one. I don't think there's anyone who hasn't had those kind of insidious messages permeate in some way. It's just that some people either are able to move past it or they're unaware of it. It's part of their subconscious.
Hello to all my modern women. You asked and I delivered. Today's guest is a body love activist known as the Bodzilla. Not only is she the queen of lilac, but she is also a writer and vocal advocate for racial, gender, and size equality. Our guest refuses to allow anyone else to tell her what she should do, eat, or think about herself, and she generously teaches other people how. Not only does she have a cult following, but she has also been featured in the SBS documentary What Does Australia Really Think About?, which reveals what Australia really thinks about disability, obesity, and old age. She was also Australia's first bikini billboard plus-size model, which was a campaign by curvy swimwear called Beach Please that set out to make everybody feel included. She was also a panelist on the Bumble Modern Womanhood virtual discussion, which spoke about misogyny, gender equality, sexual consent, and safety. She was featured in the Bras and Things, I Am Many Things blog series that shares stories of the many women and the many things that make her her. In today's chat, our guest shares her message of body positivity and self-love. To all my modern women, if ever you have struggled with the way you look or with unhealthy eating habits or been a victim of body shaming or dated someone who has made you feel like you're not good enough or question your self-worth, and if you're ready to say fuck you to diet culture, fat phobia, and self-hate, and ready to learn to accept yourself just as you are, then this is the episode for you. Body positivity and self-love is something I personally battle with on a daily basis, so it was truly amazing to speak with our incredibly inspiring and witty guest. I can't say this enough, guys, but we need more women just like her in this world. Together in this episode, Your Body, Your Business, how to accept, appreciate, and love your body, we discuss how to overcome the pressure to conform or compare to mainstream beauty and body ideals, how to overcome negative self-talk and accept, appreciate, and love our bodies, and how to bring all bodies into the mainstream for celebration. This episode is for everybody, no matter what size you are. Guys, it is with great pleasure I introduce to you today the legendary April Hélène-Horton, aka the Bodzilla. April, welcome to Single at 30.
Thank you so much for having me, Nicole. It's great to be chatting.
Yeah, so it's such an honor to have you on the podcast. So many of my listeners have requested that I have a guest on the podcast to talk about body positivity. And I just knew the second I saw you on Bumble's Modern Womanhood panel a couple of months ago now that you were exactly who I wanted to interview. So thank you. Let's start from the beginning. What was your upbringing like?
I was, I guess, always a little bit of a different kid because I was one of the only brown kids that I knew where I grew up in Goulburn. And then when I was about 8, I became, I gained weight due to the fact that I'm an asthmatic, and I took a lot of steroid medication that made me go from a very tall, broad, brown child to a very, very much bigger, almost probably double my weight over about a year, which, when I look back, I go, that's probably not, lots of kids were growing and changing, but I really, went from being already quite big because I'm tall, and people kind of already noticed me for all those reasons. And then, I became a fat kid, one who got picked on quite a lot and teased quite a lot, which, because my mum's a pretty amazing, independent, fierce woman, mostly ended up with me just, becoming a bit of a joker, being pretty aggressive in my, I made jokes so other people couldn't make fun of me. So kind of that late primary school, early high school, I picked on other people before they could pick on me because I felt very defensive all the time.
Right. I feel like high school is so hard for kids. I mean, it's amazing that we all survive it, honestly. But on Instagram, you've made mention to living in a body that wasn't accepted by society. What was that like for you growing up?
It was one of those things where I feel like my mum had always quite actively tried to talk about the fact that I was a bit different and make me aware of the fact that people might talk about that because my father was born in Mauritius, and so I although I do have, because I'm mixed race, I would say a lighter skin tone, growing up in a town where it was mostly very white people, I did stand out. So my mum had always kind of, I guess I would phrase it now as leaned into the fact that she had a mixed race child who was noticeably different because of her skin color. So I'd always been a bit of an outsider, but I embraced that. I was like, I'm special, I'm unique, which
I love
like,
that.
ego vibes.
Everyone's special.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I think my mum was just like, this is what makes you special. Like, she definitely wasn't like, you're more special than other people. She was just like, this is your thing. Other people, I don't know, play the violin or whatever. She's like, this is what makes you special. Like, you have interesting heritage. Like, she tried to make it a positive thing and make me feel like it wasn't something. If someone tried to shame me for it, that I'd just be like, shut up. And so that was the same kind of attitude that she embraced when she saw that I was getting teased because I was bigger or getting bigger, and continued to kind of gain weight over the primary and high school years. She just would, try to encourage me to just be like, whatever, like you're, and tell me all the things that I was rather than talking about what I wasn't. But that kind of couldn't take away from the fact that everybody I knew and spent time with at school made it pretty obvious that I wasn't one of them.
And how did they do that? Was it just teasing or comments?
Everything. Like, whether it was like if someone would, your female friend would blab that you had a crush on a boy and they'd like literally say out loud, oh, disgusting. I would never. Like things like that.
Wow.
Yeah. Like the way that kids are so mean. I'm just like, wow.
So mean.
Gosh. So mean. Or whether it was like having food thrown at me, animal noises. Oh, yeah. Like, when I look back, I'm like, I don't know how I didn't suffer more, like emotionally. Like, yes, I'm traumatized, but I still got up every day and went to school. And, I never said to my mum, I don't want to go to school today. I just would think, oh, these assholes at it again. Like, I do obviously have a natural level of resilience and optimism where
Absolutely.
I would kind of just go, well, and I had a group of friends. We were all misfits, I guess. There were a few of us
I love that.
We're into like, we had couple of the girls who were goths, and then another one who was just a bit of a bookworm, and we just kind of weren't part of any crowd, so we made our own crowd. A boy who he wasn't out, but he between all of us we were aware that he's gay and things like that. So we were just kind of a group of people that didn't feel like we fitted or didn't want to be in a group with the other people because they weren't really very nice to us. And it wasn't that they weren't nice people, but we were all in that thing of being a teenager and wanting desperately to fit in, and the fact that you would have to ostracize or exclude other people to make yourself more part of the cool group, which is just, I guess, white supremacy, but in teenage form. So
Yeah.
I feel like that for me, I look back and go, thank God I was friends with those people, because I'm still friends with 50% of the people from that group because they were good humans and I did love spending time with them.
Totally. And I often think that misfits are actually the cool kids who go on to change the world. Like, they're the people you actually really want to know long term, So it's so interesting because now look at what you're doing later on in life. So on that note, I love how you're advocating for the acceptance of all bodies and in doing so revolutionizing beauty standards. When did your journey with body positivity begin?
I definitely think that it's my journey with body positivity started pretty late in life. But when I look back at some of the things that I recognized or felt about bodies and things like that, just more so conversations that I would have with friends where it was about, why shouldn't you do X, Y, or Z? And that was a lot more about, I guess, that girl power. The Spice Girls were around then. they were our kind of our vibe. Is that thing of like everyone should be allowed, but it was still like a very niche everyone. There was only a specific kind of everyone. So probably when I think about when I really started actively talking about body positivity, has only been in the last 3 years, and that's mostly because of the advent of Instagram's body positivity focus, because I feel like it does have times where, 5 years ago, the focus was maybe more so on advocating for open conversations about mental health. I feel like that was one of the things where we saw a lot of content being created. People were feeling reassured by seeing other people online speaking out. And so I think I started to really see these conversations about bodies, about fat liberation, about the ways that we are harmed by body image conversations and diet culture. After I had my baby, and he's 4 now. Yeah, so I think the first year of that was its own whole other thing. But I think I was I was really starting to, I guess, look at myself and my influence and the fact that I literally was responsible for how this person was going to grow up and be part of the world, and thinking back on all of the ways that I had, both at the hands of other people, been teased and bullied, but also the kind of shitty behavior that I had done to people, and wanting to go early on, I'm not going to contribute to that. I'm going to help, my child be a better person maybe than the people I knew, or even the person that I was back in the 90s when I was only little.
Totally. So can we talk about the difference between fat positivity and body acceptance? How would you describe them?
Sure. I think body acceptance is for everyone, right? It's for all of us to look at ourselves and each other and just go, yep, hi, that's you. Hey, it's me. Feel good about that. Or just feel neutral about it. Body neutrality is another way of looking at it. But I think body acceptance is much more focused on accepting the flaws that society has told you that you have. Right. So if we look at those conversations, hip dips, let's normalize, stretch marks, things that you potentially have regardless of whether or not you are fat or thin or what your skin color is, all of that stuff. I think body acceptance is about everybody becoming a little bit more open to the fact that perfect bodies aren't real. The airbrushed, the photoshopped, that conversation that even the model doesn't look like the model. I think that's what body acceptance is allowing us to detach ourselves and our self-worth from the messages society has given us about body image. And I think my sense and how I've experienced fat positivity is advocating for fat bodies to be allowed to exist without judgment, specifically because they are more heavily targeted than, say, your quote-unquote flawed bodies. So if we look at someone like Sarah Nicole Landry of the Birds Papaya, she talks about body acceptance. Now, she is very much, she's aware and an advocate for fat positivity, and she's very aware of her privilege, and she talks about that. And it's one of the reasons that I absolutely love her, is that she's understanding of the fact that even while she's having a moment that she needs to, sit with herself and say, I'm okay, I accept myself, and that's a very real thing. She also recognizes that what she goes through is nothing compared to the open, disgusting behavior and oppression that fat bodies are exposed to. And so fat positivity is about advocating for easily accessible fashion, healthcare, both mental and physical, like allowing fat bodies to exist and be accepted and be perceived in a way that they are equal with all of the other people. And I think that for me is something that we've seen pushed to the side, because body acceptance, of course, is more mainstream. It allows people who maybe have only noticed that they have flaws when somebody told them, like the internet is full of these, let's normalize this. And you're like, I just thought I
didn't know I should feel bad about that, but thanks.
Right? Like, oh, you have this many eyebrow hairs instead of that many eyebrow hairs. Like, don't worry. We love you too. Like, what? So I think fat positivity is what I really want to see people advocating for. And it's why I really have tried, especially in the last 2 years since I became the Bodzilla, to talk about that and to allow people to go, oh, but I feel bad about myself. Like, I'm thin and I've always struggled with my body image. And for me to say, yep, and I hear that and I totally understand. I'm not trying to invalidate that, but you need to be aware that your struggles are a part of what fat people go through. Like, we all have that feeling of not accepting or not loving, not being neutral, not being able to simply get up in the morning and look at our bodies and go, okay, I can do the things I need to do because my body allows me to do that. And you know, this conversation isn't even taking into account the difference between someone who has other intersections of identity, such as trans people, disabled people, etc. You know, so we're only very, like, you know, in this particular example, I'm talking about myself. And so I am a, you know, cis woman who is able-bodied, and, you know, so I recognize that I also have privilege. But I think being able to redirect people when they're feeling a certain way or wanting to have a certain angle of discussion about bodies, and being like, sure, absolutely, 100% I'm with you, but also don't forget, and kind of getting them to just open that door into, wow, there's so much more to this than just how I've been made to feel. And that's not to take away from them at all. I fully believe that every single person I've ever met has struggled with body image. There's no
Oh,
one.
absolutely.
I don't think there's anyone who hasn't had those kind of insidious messages permeate them in some way. It's just that some people either are able to move past it, or they're unaware of it. It's part of their subconscious, you know, conversations with people who talk about how they just feel so much better about themselves and associate maybe like change in body shape and mass with their mental health. And I'm like, I am not sure that those two things are actually, the correlation is much more about what you believe your value is when
100%.
you weigh less.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Yeah, but I think that's probably the difference. Sorry, that was quite a long answer for a little question.
Totally. So let's talk about the origins of the Bodzilla, because I love that name. How did you come up with it?
It was a team effort. I worked with a photographer, Jade, from Hipster Mum Social. Basically, she said to me, I'm loving what you're posting. Like, we already knew each other and we're acquainted. And she had said to me, I love what you're posting about bodies and all that kind of thing. She's like, I feel like there's so much more. Like, you should do that as a thing. You should just do it. And she was really encouraging. And we did a photo shoot that we collaborated on, and we kind of, you know, because that's what she does. She's a photographer. She does brand work and things like that, social media. And so we kind of were like, okay, we're going to do a rebrand, because I had my Instagram handle was just like a personal one. And so I was like, well, I don't know, like, what am I about? And she's like, you're powerful. You know, like, she was really reassuring, and she really embodied that kind of hype girl energy. And she said to me, it's something about like a boss or a bod or a something. And we just kept like, we're texting back and forth. We were like, you know, caught up for lunch, and we were like, but what are we gonna, you know, we're going through letters of the alphabet. It was a real like effort for a couple of days. And then she was like, Bodzilla. I was like, that's it. Stop. We're done. You've nailed it. So all credit to Jade. It was definitely, that was her brain popped that little spark of genius out. And then one of my best friends, Heather, coined the phrase, it's Bodzilla, bitch. I think
I love those hashtags.
as a bit of an honor to Britney Spears. It's Britney, bitch. I think it was definitely one of those. So she kind of coined that phrase. Jade came up with the name, and then I just went gung ho with it, and I totally embraced it.
It's iconic.
It is, and I feel like now I am able to see how she, you know, Jade in that moment was like, you can do this, because now I do it, and I'm like, oh, I'm doing it, and that is exactly, you know, what she meant when she said it. So that's pretty great. Yeah.
And so what has the journey of learning to accept and appreciate and love your body look like for you? I mean, has it changed since launching as the Bodzilla?
Oh, yeah. Like so when I started doing Bodzilla stuff, and I did the photo shoot with Jade, I posed with no clothes on with my my balloons. It was my 35th birthday, and I was changing over and launching the brand, so to speak, on my birthday, which was February 2020. And so Jade actually said, why don't you just like go, like I'd done a couple of shots in a swimsuit, and this was all stuff where she was like, let's do it. And she really encouraged me. And then she's like, why don't you just like get down to your undies? She's like, or even without undies, because obviously, you know, we felt a bit like we'd hung out a bit, we knew each other. She was like, it's fine, I'm not going to look, like, I'll wait till you've got the balloons in position. So there I was, naked in this little studio that we were using, and had these gold foil balloons in front of me. And I feel like getting those photos back was the start of an amazing, I guess, trajectory into looking at myself and being like, I look all right, or better than all right in other cases. But, depending on the day, that I can get up and go, I look fine. Or, that idea that you can wake up on a Tuesday and feel bad about yourself, but on a Friday you can be like, I look hot. And you know that nothing changed since Friday about your body. But somehow you can look at it differently, and you realize that's all about your mindset and your perception of yourself.
Totally.
And being able to look at photos of yourself and go, oh, that's still me. Like, that's still, I was looking at some pictures from 2015 the other day. And so for me, I went through, I had weight loss surgery, which these days is something I don't really talk about because I just don't feel like it's as relevant. And I've written a bit of a blog post about what I have to say about it, so I can kind of refer people back to it, because I just don't feel like it's something that I want to discuss, because I don't have an opinion on what other people do with their bodies. I'm not going to recommend it or speak against it. It's just a fact that I did have weight loss surgery in late 2015. So 6 years later, looking through some photos, and I realised that they're pictures of me from 5 years ago, and I look the same, because even though, I had the surgery, lost weight, went through a lot of stuff, had a baby, some pretty significant mental health stuff, and then got into what I'll call Bodzilla mode, and back or close to looking the same as I did. And I because I now don't actively follow what my actual weight is. I don't know how much I weigh, but I look at those photos, I'm like, that could be from today. I look the same. But now I remember taking those photos and being like, oh, thank God you're going to have this surgery and you're not going to look like this anymore. And I look at myself and I go, I looked fine. I looked great. I was being so unkind to myself and full of so much self-hate and shame, because that is, what I had reinforced across various different things, whether it's, from magazines or people I interacted with who made me feel a certain way about myself. But that growth and that change, I think, got me to the point where someone says, oh, quick, let's get a photo. I'm not like, show it to me. I remember being that person always, oh no, I don't like my chins. Now I just get in the photo and go, cheese, and then I go, because I'm like, it doesn't matter. Because that's what I look
actually
like.
wouldn't even get in photos. That's how bad I was. I would say no. Like, I've never even really posted on Instagram. So, like, you're better than me.
Oh, well, I used to be the person who took the photos. I was well known as being the girl who had the camera, and I was never in any of the photos because I didn't want to be in the photos. Or if I took a photo, it would be a selfie, and I would, you tilt your head till your neck almost snaps, trying to get the perfect chin, ankle. Oh, God. Why do we do these things to ourselves? But, yeah, so these days I jump out in front of a camera and I go, take the photo. And like this morning, my husband took some photos of me, which I then posted. And I went, oh, I'm not really loving what my hair's doing here. Not really loving what my chin's doing there. And then I was like, oh, well. And I posted them because I was like,
good on
it doesn't
you.
matter. Like it was a picture of a T-shirt. I'm like, my chins and my hair isn't, like, the picture was supposed to be about the message on the shirt. So my chin kind of doesn't make a difference to that. And that's where I am, but it's so far from where I've been. So I think when I talk about accepting, appreciating and loving my body, sometimes it's simply just going, yeah, I mean, look, is it the cutest I've ever looked? No, but it's fine.
That will do.
That will do. I'm fine. It's fine. So, it's definitely still a work in progress.
So what would you tell women struggling with their own journey of acceptance?
That it's not on a time frame. You're not going to run out of time. There's no clock ticking down saying, if you don't love yourself by this point, that's it. You're cooked. Goodbye. Every single day, you can just wake up and try to be a little bit kinder to yourself. That's all it is.
Right.
It's not about waking up and just being like, right, I'm going to get my jiggly bits out on the gram and I'm going to just love it and flaunt it, because not everybody's like that. Not everybody wants to show their body, and that's fine.
No.
Conversely, if you want to show your whole ass, go for your life. You'll probably get an Insta violation, but I'm here for it. I'm like, do whatever you want. And I don't think we can judge people who want to stay covered up or people who want to get totally uncovered around whether there's something or there's something else. As far as, you don't accept yourself if you don't strip off. That's not true. If you want to be covered from neck to ankle, if you are someone whose cultural or religious attire has you covered, but you love yourself underneath, then that's your business. I think that for anyone, whether it's women, non-men, But even men also struggling with the journey of accepting themselves, their body, and how they look when they compare themselves. Just don't compare yourself. That's a really, really great choice.
It's
and I
so
realize
hard,
it's hard.
though.
Absolutely. It's not an easy one, but it gets easier the more you do it. A bit like anything.
Yeah.
If self-acceptance is a muscle and you build it up, right?
Oh, I love that. Wow,
I really,
that's good.
and so that's when you get to the stage where I am, you're kind of like flexing, with the whole like chin situation where you're like, no, I have built myself up now that I can lift myself up out of this, oh my God, I don't look cute, to just be like, yeah, trolla.
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely think it's an everyday journey. Some days you're just like, oh, I feel like crap. Maybe physically you're not feeling well. People with chronic illness don't necessarily have the same privilege to choose to feel good if they're in terrible pain or they're feeling unwell. But just choosing to maybe be a little bit kind and say, okay, I don't feel well. I don't feel like I look well. I'm going to rest. And I'm going to choose to just put myself in comfy clothes and do things that make me feel okay about myself. That's the best thing that you can do.
Yeah, I feel like we don't take enough time to really be kind to our bodies and rest them when we need to. We're always in autopilot, forcing ourselves to do more. And yeah, I think that that's such an important takeaway, that it's okay to just say, today I'm just not going to engage and I'm just going to put on my trackies and just chill.
Yeah, absolutely.
But what about food? I've personally gone through so many phases of having a really unhealthy relationship with food, where I would either binge eat and then feel guilty for doing so, or go through periods of strict dieting and under-eating. What advice do you have for women who struggle with their relationship with food, particularly in this diet culture we all live in?
1, and unfollow every single person who talks about their day on a plate. Goodbye. Get rid of it. See you later. In the bin you go. Because it's not one person can replicate someone else's habits and get the same result. So if you immediately are looking at what someone's eating, or also you're looking at what someone's eating going, oh, that's so little. I'm a failure because I can't stop myself from eating more than that. Well, that's just not it. I don't know how else to phrase it, but that is not it. We're all individuals, metabolism, physical, everything, all of the things about us are not, you can't do what somebody else does and get the same result. And we've seen it time and time again when we see these women are all a size XYZ and they all look different. One's tall and looks slim. One's shorter and kind of rounder, whatever it is, but they're all wearing the same size clothes. Because the dysmorphia that comes with seeing the same body type over and over and over again and having weird arbitrary numbers assigned. This is a 12, this is an 8, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
It's not...
And on any given day, it could be 1 and then a completely different size the next. It's so
depending
bizarre.
On the store, whether you're bloated, is it a stretchy fabric or not? There's no,
whether it's a top or a jeans,
it's literally all made up.
Exactly.
It's like anything. And so I think, number 1, unfollow people who promote diet culture, whether that's diet tea, day on a plate, weirdly phrased eating disorder behavior, like, oh, I'm doing this fasting where I don't eat for 7 weeks, just stop it.
Another juice cleanse.
Right. People who, solid food, never heard of her. People who Photoshop themselves. Now, that's another thing, because I feel like people who Photoshop themselves are actually living in diet culture themselves. Chloe, I'm looking at you. And I think that it's one thing for Khloe Kardashian to Photoshop herself and say, I'm a victim of diet culture. Agreed, babe. And let's hug it out. But also stop talking about other people or I'm going to have to smack you, because I'm not here for... I'm immersed in diet culture, but that's okay because I am me and I have all this privilege. But I'm also going to talk about people in fat bodies and the fact that they shouldn't be allowed to eat ice cream with joy. Shut up. So right. I think that it's, so I guess that all that to say, as I said, number 1, unfollow people who make you feel bad. Number 2, follow people who are actively health at every size, anti-diet, and let's go with some professionals. If you can see online that there are HAES and anti-diet dietitians, nutritionists, other people, if what you want is a bit of health spo, let's make sure it's actual health. And so
Totally.
That's talking about fueling our bodies and our minds, and not just food, but other things like movement for joy and accepting the fact that not all of us are as fit or as flexible or as whatever as we used to be, but that doesn't mean that we can't just get out there and we don't have to look cute while we're exercising. So people who talk about accepting their bodies without making assumptions about other people's bodies, people who are actively pursuing, professional qualifications around being, body positive medical professionals. Fat Doctor UK, Dr. Natasha Lamy is a wonderful person who I just love following. And also, oh gosh, there's a whole bunch. If you check out who I'm following on Instagram, you'll find there are a heap of really great medical or dietitians who are actively working against diet culture by explaining how bodies work, like how they actually work, not how they work when you starve them and punish them with exercise. Ben Carpenter and Dr. Joshua Walrich, if you are like me and get a weird, hello patriarchy, feeling about cute boys talking about how you're like okay because they're dismantling exercise culture and diet culture and weight stigma and all of that. If there's something that makes that more interesting or palatable, seeing, someone who maybe if you're like me, you have a little bit of, something in your mind that goes, oh, that somehow means something extra to me when I hear it from someone I find conventionally attractive. Like, I don't know if that, like, what that says about me, but I'm willing to admit that's how I feel. If that helps you, I don't mind, and this is probably something that goes back all the way, I don't mind making a bit of a dick of myself if that will help you feel better about yourself, as long as I'm not harming myself, essentially. Yep. So if I'll admit, I love, one of the things I love about Ben Carpenter is that he's just like this, muscular, funny, I think attractive guy, but he's also being like, I hate fat phobic people and they need a punch in the face. And I'm like, there's something that's a little bit sexy about that. Like, I'm into
very
it.
sexy.
Yes. And,
sign me up.
But I also want to be very clear that being sexy is not part of what you need to be a great follow and a great inspiration to people. It's just that I feel like sometimes when you're like, oh, hello, what's this person doing? Then I'm like, oh, I love that caption. You really get a feeling about, it's like when someone you love and idolize, a celebrity, does something really epic. I saw a model that I've never actually seen before berating a photographer about saying something to her about her eating habits. She was letting him have it, and I was like, I don't know who this lady is, but she is sexy.
Oh wow, I want to look that up.
I'm gonna find it and I'm gonna send it to you because it was on TikTok, and then someone that I'm friends with shared it. But she literally was like, I am not doing this shoot. No. You want to? No, I'm not doing it. And the photographer was fired by the client that was supposed to be shooting with her that day because they were like, yeah, he can't behave like that.
Wow.
So it's that thing, when you're like, I'm weirdly aroused by this person kind of doing this thing. And so I guess that's how I feel about, all of the people that I love to follow who potentially, you wouldn't expect to be the person defending you because you, if you're like me, you've experienced people that look like them being really not that kind of person and really not treating you well. So it's just kind of nice to feel like you've got that. So yeah, I mean, that's a little bit, I guess, about my personal trauma. But anyway.
So my listeners, one of the main reasons they wanted me to do an episode on this topic is because they feel like there's so much pressure on women to appear outwardly perfect all the time and strive for these unreachable beauty standards, particularly with the rise of things like social media and this swipe right culture we're living in. I saw that you're the first plus-size woman, I think, in the world. Is that right?
Definitely in Australia. Right, I don't know about the world. I mean, look, I'm happy to take a global title, but definitely in Australia.
Okay, yeah. So the first plus-size woman in Australia to appear in a bikini on a billboard, which is epic. Congratulations. How do you deal with these expectations, particularly as a model in the spotlight?
I mean, yeah, I actively rail against this. I was posting something on Saturday, actually. I'm having a big wardrobe clean out and right now I'm sitting in my room. I know I'm sitting in my room and I'm like, oh my Lord, what am I doing here? Because I've just got too many clothes and it's just bonkers. But what I was sort of a bit sweaty, had that kind of, housework look about me, wasn't looking attractive. Hair was kind of going everywhere, was just wearing kind of PJs with a jumper over the top. And I posted about this and I said, one of the things that I've always been afraid to do, even now, and I was kind of even to this week, doing something that felt a little bit like, oh God, I've never done that before, posting myself looking hot, sweaty, not in an athletic context, just more like I've been getting around the house trying to figure out what the hell happened and how I got so many clothes. And I posted that and I said, how many people relate to the idea that you need to present yourself online when you're a fat person? You need to present yourself online as looking more attractive than, like just put together all the time because you feel like you need to look clean and look like you smell good and look like you're not lazy. Like what? I mean, what? You can't even glean that from a photograph anyway. But the point is, like, I definitely think all women and all people really, but all non-men are subjected to these standards that cis men never are, around how you need to look so that people find you attractive, so that people think that you, like, I really feel strongly that, the only time it's acceptable to look sweaty is if you're at the gym. And even then you still need to be like doing a booty pic. Like you can't look sweaty. And, people who do show themselves looking unkempt or, post gym, hair going everywhere, whatever it is, are still doing something somewhat radical because it's not normal. I'm using air quotes, but no one can see that. It's not normal to just look like, a human. And I think that that's one of the
Definitely
really powerful,
not.
Right? It's
How dare you?
A human? Get out of here. It's one of the really powerful ways that we push back against body image and diet culture, is just literally going expectations in the bin. I don't need to do that. And if you think that I need to do that, the unfollow option is always there. And I look at people like Abby Chatfield and myself.
Love her.
We love Abby. And
Love her.
Abby's one of those people who's super real. Like she will show herself like, a bun that's kind of, you just like, she literally just woke up, hair in a bun, no makeup, no filter. And obviously
and she's
Abby,
stunning. I love that look on her. Like she does not
I can't
need
deal with how attractive she is. But
inside and out, like personality wise, brains, everything.
Exactly.
Like
and I think that shows through in the fact that I think if you wanted to dislike her, you could, and then you could lean into that horrible diet culture thing or that standards thing about how people need to present and go, why doesn't she do something with herself? Like, why does she let herself look like that? But if you, like us, love her, froth her, then you're like, look at her glowing, not a scrap of makeup, no filter, nothing. Amazing.
Yeah,
we
best
love
skin
that.
ever, healthy,
but also,
inside out.
like you say, the way that she is, that she will champion things that she believes in, the way that she will listen to feedback, the way that she, all of the things that people do that makes them sexy that's got nothing to do with their abs or their butt or whatever. But, I think that she is another person like me who has kind of come to that, like that evolution of like, I don't need to do this and perform this for people. And all like the backlash that you get when you don't appear the way people want you to is wild. Like,
and from women as well, which is really upsetting. I don't know why we're like that. Yeah.
I know why. And we do know why. It's called the patriarchy.
Yeah.
It's the thing is for us is the reason that we are conditioned to work on behalf of the patriarchy and take each other down. We are conditioned to do that. It's not because we're inherently bad. It's not because we actually hate other women or we want to tear other women down. And I think that the idea that we can kind of realize that and have that as an active thought, like, even if your first response is to think something like snarky about someone, but then you go, hang on, why am I thinking that? That's not true. Being able to have a conscious internal conversation about why you are being or thinking the way that you are is really powerful. And I think, it's for me as someone who, I say I'm a feminist, I'm an intersectional feminist, but like, what does that mean? It just means that I've always got my mind open to the fact that I'm probably wrong or potentially leaning into an unconscious bias and I need to calm down.
Yeah.
I think that for people who feel the pressure to conform or compare to mainstream beauty and body ideals, there's 3 things that we need to do, and that's open the mainstream up to include so many more people, beauty types and bodies, because that will allow more people to identify with it. And then when it's comparison, it's healthy. Oh, that person looks like me and I feel good about that. We need to stop conversations, trolling and bullying in ways that people will publicly show their worst sides that validates other people's bad behavior. Like, I think we need to really actively push back against trolling and bullying and stop people from just flexing just how mean they can be.
I just can't believe it's still a thing. Like, how is trolling a thing?
Why? And the third thing is ask the big corporations to do more. Like, always be asking more from the people who are creating this oppression.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. So, I mean, you've obviously touched on your weight loss surgery, and you mentioned that you really don't have an opinion when it comes to other women and their decision to get cosmetic surgery. Is that across the board? Do you just support any woman's decision to get Botox if they want? Okay.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
My body, my choice is applicable to cosmetic procedures. It's, abortions as healthcare. It's literally whatever you want to do with your own body is your business. But my concern, I suppose, is that people are altering and augmenting their bodies because they've been told that they're not good enough. Now, that is a problem, and we need to kind of break that down. But for people who have surgery because they say, I feel more confident when I XYZ, look, honestly, it doesn't hurt me. It doesn't bother me. It's not harming me, and it's not really my business. And I think if we could just learn to, mind our business, or do your business. My son said to me this morning, I was trying to get him out the door, and he's like, Mum, you're rushing me. Can you just go do your business? And I was like, thinking that meant something
else. Wait, didn't you say your son's 4?
Yes, I did.
I love that.
Which only makes this a 10 times more terrible story that he is that sassy at 4. Please, 1 like, 1 prayer, send help.
You've got your work cut out for you.
Well, I said, do you mean mind your business? He goes, yep. And then kept doing what he was doing. And I was like, yeah, okay, wow. This is my life. So
I wonder where he learnt it from.
I couldn't imagine. Couldn't begin to guess. And this is, I think, though, if that's the attitude that we could just take, you know what? Why don't you just go and do your business, and I'll worry about my business. I think that we need to stop commenting on people's appearances, and I feel like if we did that, lots of people wouldn't feel a pressure to feel more confident because people would stop commenting on. So it's not just about someone talking to you about how you look. It's you and your friend talking, and your friend says a thing about someone else, and you identify as having a similar look to that person. You're hearing that about yourself, right? And
all
it's
the
like
time.
when you read the disgusting things that men write online about women, it's like that person might never see what you've written, but your mum will, and your sister will, women you know, women you're connected with, women you don't know, but who might take that to heart. And the fact that you're behaving in a way that has no regard for what you're doing, because every action that people are taking is having some kind of effect on someone, whether they're aware of it or not. And so that those ongoing conversations that, friends who talk about, I always think of that scene in Mean Girls where they're picking out all their flaws. And Katie doesn't know how to do that because she hasn't been conditioned to do it. That, I mean, as much as we might have questions about Tina Fey more generally, I think is a really powerful comment on the way that we've been socialized to hate ourselves, and the fact that other people doing it in front of us will teach us to do it too.
Oh, completely. I actually, at the co-working space I work at, the office manager, she has quite a public profile on her Instagram. And I saw a guy, some random guy that she doesn't follow, comment and rate every feature of her body openly in the comments. I'm not even joking. And like you said, when he did that, it made me think about myself. And then I was like, this isn't okay. And her friends and family are going to see it. And it just impacts everybody. And he's some random guy who probably has framed photos of her all over his house because he's clearly obsessed.
Psychopath.
But it's but it's like, how do you think that that's okay to do something like that to somebody? And it's just, it's beyond me.
That's one of those things we need to push back hard against that stuff. We need to use every feature. We need to report. We need all of the platforms to go harder on the things that are harming people and really wake up to themselves when it comes to victimizing marginalized voices online. Use that power that you have to tag every single thing that mentions the word COVID or vaccine. Use that power to flag every disgusting misogynistic comment on Instagram. You have the power. Just use it.
Oh, absolutely. And so going back to your surgery, knowing everything that you know now, would you consider having the surgery again if you could go back in time?
I don't know where my life would have led if I didn't do it. So I'm just going to say that I would make the same choices over again because I love my life and I love the people who I'm surrounded by, and I wouldn't be where I am today without everything that happened before today. So.
So, I mean, we've touched on this, but I feel like all women, regardless of their shape or size, have experienced body shaming. And a lot of people in my life, sadly, including peers and friends, often comment on the way I look and tell me when I've gained weight. A recent memory is when someone in my meditation class told me I was looking plump, which left me speechless, mostly because I felt objectified by an older man in what I thought was a safe space. Like, this was a guy who was in his 50s. We were about to sit down for a 1 hour meditation. And while he was asking me how I was, he then just took it upon himself to point out that I had gained weight. So what are some of the different forms of body shaming you've experienced?
Oh, God. I mean, which ones haven't I experienced? I think it's probably a shorter list. I mean, situations like that where people will comment. My thing is more, I think, about the times that people commented on my weight when I'd lost weight and how that made me feel about the person I was before and how I was someone to them now.
It's not a compliment. It's just not a compliment. And people need to stop it.
And I have people even today be like, oh, you look like you've lost weight. I'm like, no, I don't. Because I've gained weight. Because I know. Because I wear my clothes every day. Why are you lying? You know, I don't. There's no need. I don't get that. It's not a compliment to me. If you say you look hot, I'd say thank you. I know. No, maybe I wouldn't say that.
Oh, you look happy. Like,
yes,
you look happy.
You look happy. You know what? I've had some of my favorite compliments of all time in the last kind of 2 years. Someone told me I'm the human version of a warm apple pie. And I was like, you know what? I'm not accepting anything less than that. The bar is high. I am a pie. It rhymes. I just am not, I'm no longer subscribing to, oh, thank you so much when someone tells me I've lost weight. I would just, if someone says to me, oh, you look like you've lost weight, I would just say, oh, and then I would just move on. I don't say it's good, it's bad. Depending on who it is and where I am, I might be like, gross. We don't do that. If my child was there, I'd be like, oh, we don't talk about bodies, but how are you? And I just would divert the conversation because I'm not doing that. That's not the energy that I'm bringing. But I recognize people are trying to be nice, and so I guess what I try to share with people other ways to give compliments, mostly by modeling it. Oh, you look you look happy, or oh, I love how your hair is today, or whatever it is. Body shaming, it comes from all different places, whether it's my mum being like, pull your top down over your ass before I leave the house, because in her mind that was going to cover up how big it was somehow. I'm like, that actually makes it look worse, because now I look like I have no ass, and that just like, I would rather show people this delightful booty. Or whether it was, like even now I might come out in an outfit. My husband and I he had a dress up birthday party. It was his 40th this year, and I dressed as Storm from the X-Men, and I wore a Love Honey leather catsuit. So like skin
Love
tight.
that.
Clever.
Where do I get myself one of those?
Oh yeah, like it's literally, I was just like, the fact that the crotch unzips, let's just ignore that. That's not relevant at a birthday party in public. But the idea that I would walk out of the house like that, my mum looked at me and I was like, before you say anything, don't say anything, because this is what I'm wearing and I look hot. And she went, righto, put her hands up like, oh, okay, righto. So that body shaming is not more so just like, oh, I can't believe you're going to wear that. Why? Because you're afraid to wear it? Why don't you just get unafraid and I'll lend it to you? So that idea that people will project their own self-image onto you is one of the most insidious body shaming experiences that I've ever had.
Yeah, and that's all it really ever is. It's just a projection, right? Like, don't project your insecurities on me. I'm fine. Thank you. So what advice do you have for women who find themselves in similar situations where they're dealing with body shaming from people around them?
I think being really active in, I guess, protecting yourself. So like knowing if you're going into a situation where you're like, oh, I'm going to family lunch and there's going to be some shaming from whether it's, my grandmother, or like, I'm just trying to think of an example where you would go somewhere and that person's going to say something.
Oh, my nana would always say stuff. Like, I mean, one that really stands out to me is one time when she said, what I love about you is that people can tell you love to eat, like you love food. And I was like, Nana, Maybe that's a compliment to you, but I don't know how to receive that one. Thank you.
Yeah, and like I almost am like, good try, because that feels like it was almost doing the thing but wasn't quite there. I'll give her a half mark for that one. I think that, like, you know, if you had known that weird person at your meditation class was going to speak to you about your body, you would have mentally set yourself up to say, if he says something about my body, I'm going to be like, wow, that's a weird thing to say. You would have felt ready to come back and be like, I'm shutting that down. But because it came out of nowhere, you were like, I don't know how to react to that. I'm not going to be able to meditate now. I'm just going to sit here with my mind spinning about what the hell.
I think I went and sat in the bathroom for like 10 minutes and I never spoke to him again, and he never apologized to me. And we were like on a talking basis where we would speak each time we saw each other, and it just never occurred to him to actually take responsibility for being a creep.
Even if it was to simply say, hey, I said that thing and I didn't mean anything by it, and your intention is for shit, but I didn't mean anything by it, and I'm really sorry, you know, that I said that. That was out of line. You would be like, it really was, but thank you for acknowledging that. And perhaps you guys would still be friends. But now he can just go meditate elsewhere. Probably at home if he's, you know, pretty much anywhere in Australia because lockdown. But I think being prepared to say what you feel comfortable saying. And I know that when we go into lots of family situations, it can be volatile, frightening, traumatic. And you know, like, oh, your mum's going to say blah, and you're going to feel a certain way. So part of that, I think, as well, you know, is potentially avoiding those situations. You're allowed to not engage with people who make you feel like shit about yourself. Like, you're literally allowed to just be like, oh, I'm so sorry, I can't make it. And in your head, finish the sentence with, because you make me feel bad about myself. You're allowed to go to the thing and say, hey, I just want to, like, if you felt like you could say, I know that you're probably going to say that I'm looking a certain kind of way. I'm not really in the headspace to hear comments about my body. Thank you for caring. I know that it comes from a place of love. Can we not talk about each other's bodies or other people's bodies? Just makes me feel weird. And, you know, you're going to get a lot of that. Oh, I can't say anything these days. Oh, okay. And if you're not mentally prepared to have the conversation where it goes down a whole rabbit hole of everyone being, so up in arms because they're not allowed to be rude and oppressive and whatnot, then, you know, avoid those situations, or at least go in there knowing that whatever that person says, you need to just put your shield up, ding, and let it just fly off you, because you know that it's not true. And I know that sounds really easy and it sounds naff to go, just decide that you don't care. But if you tell yourself that's their problem, that's them, that's not me, that's them, you may find that you're able to get through a situation that's normally more difficult, and be able to walk away from that going, wow, that person really, you know, maybe you think that person really came at me like more than once, you know, with their backhanded compliments or their weird microaggressions, and I'm not down for it. And I think being prepared is really something that I go into lots of situations imagining the meanest things that someone might say to me, because, you know, in real life, in the past, that has happened where someone would be like, whoa, you know, I've been in situations where me or someone I love has been talking to a medical professional and been, you know, shamed, like very vocally, but also the idea that, I knew that my mum was going to say something about my outfit. So I was like, don't. We're not doing that, because I already knew that was going to happen.
And I guess the trick is to learn how to, like, not take it personally if and when it does happen as well, which is so hard. But, like, like for me with that guy at meditation school, it was like a personal attack for me. And then a year later, now I can kind of like look back and be like, okay, that was just ridiculous and he was completely out of line and it just means that he's a creep. But at the time I was like, I feel awful, you know?
And that's where you've come from and where you've gotten to. And like this, you know, in a year you've had that amount of growth. And I think that's a really positive thing. I think you shouldn't write that off as only having, you know, that's a big deal for you to be able to look at something like that and know that it's not about you is awesome.
Totally. So let's talk about relationships. Let's start with the relationship we have with ourselves first. How do you define self-love and how has it evolved for you?
Self-love for me is taking care of yourself and treating yourself the same way you treat the people in your life that you love. So letting yourself, I mean, it's such a simple idea, but it's one that is so hard to put into practice. if someone I love makes a mistake, I go, don't worry about it. It was a mistake. But if I make a mistake, I'm the worst person on earth.
And you list all the reasons why.
As you fall asleep so that you, exactly, go over all the terrible things you've ever done. If someone in my life is tired, I tell them to rest and I make it easy for them to do that. Don't worry, I'll take care of that. I will take that off your plate. I will handle that thing for you. Okay, but like when I need to rest, I'm like, keep going, you lazy bitch. So being able to, self-love for me is being like, I need to rest and vocalizing that with the people who are going to take something off my plate. Or whether it be at work, I work with some really supportive people. And again, this is for me where I realize I'm very fortunate to work with people who are like, self-care is super important, or to say, you actually seem kind of down. Are you okay? Do you need some time? Whatever it is. Obviously they can't observe that about me now because we're working through a screen, but that's where I need to go, okay, I'm going to have to tell this person that I need time. I need to finish early today because I'm just feeling exhausted, or, emotionally I'm not really prepared to whatever it might be, depending on the work that you do. And I realize that that's not something that everybody can do. People who work in frontline healthcare, things like that, just have to kind of show up. And sometimes it's really tiring if you're working a double or you've spent your day doing really traumatic and sad things, because working in something like frontline healthcare can be, terrible, especially at a time like now. Yeah. And I think that that's when you've got to really lean into that physical self-care. Okay, but when I get home from work, I'm not going to stare at my phone and doom scroll. I'm going to have a bath.
Guilty.
And I'm going to sleep. Oh my
God, I feel so seen right now.
My friend, one of my very good friends has this great term. She says, stacked. And it means seen, but also attacked.
Right. And oh my God, that's amazing. That should go in Urban Dictionary immediately.
Tioni, that one, I can't take credit for that. It's my friend Tioni. So yeah, I think that just definitely one of those things where you go, wow, yep, okay, I relate. And so I think it's that self-love, self-kindness, self-compassion, whatever it is. Yeah, treat yourself the way that you treat the people you love, because you are a person that you love, or you should be.
Yeah, absolutely. And has becoming a mother had an impact on the way you feel about yourself?
Yeah, but mostly made me feel guilty and a little bit like embarrassed. Because I'm like, oh God, am I a good mum? And then he goes, do your business. And I'm like, no, I'm not. Oh God. I think that being a parent, but especially a mother, really gives you an insight into the ways that we expect so much from ourselves and that we never give ourselves a break, but that we'll give other people breaks left, right, and center. And I think that having a person in your life who will teach you every day that you just have to let people learn and let them live, because you can't know what you haven't been told. Or conversely, you will only know what you've had reinforced. And when you reinforce love and compassion to a person, a small person, and sass, obviously, in my case, when you reinforce those things and they mirror them to you, you have to be able to go, oh, yeah, I'll do something and I'll go, oh my God, why did I do that? Because I'm very, I don't hide how I am and how I feel, ever. And my son said to me before, he's like, that's okay, Mum. You made a mistake. That's okay. And I'm just like, A, I'm crying, but also B, yeah, that is okay. Like, it's actually so fun. And so they allow you to take a minute sometimes and reflect back to you that love that you need. So yeah, it definitely has had an impact on me.
That is so adorable. He sounds incredible.
Yeah, he's pretty great. I look forward, and yet I'm terrified by the idea of him being old enough, I guess, to be the kind of person that you can have everyday conversations with. Even now, the things that he says and does, I'm just like, oh my God, you have no idea. I mean, I always tell people I'm in so much trouble because I can't keep a straight face. Like, he's saying something and I'm like, oh my God, that's the funniest thing I've ever heard. But also like, stop it. You can't talk like that, being sassy, being snarky. I'm like, stop it. So yeah.
I love cheeky kids, honestly.
Yeah.
I hope that when I have children, they're like the naughtiest things. So I was listening to this amazing podcast episode between you and Clementine Ford this week, where she recounts a conversation you had, and correct me if I'm wrong, with a friend when you were about 16 years old, where you said you hope to be married with kids one day. and how little hope you had that someone would love you even though you really hoped that at least one person would, and how you didn't care if that person cheated as long as they didn't leave you. And like hearing that, I was so moved because I feel like all women have felt that same level of doubt at some point in their lives. And I'm curious, did finding love come easy for you in the end?
Look, all of that's true what you've just said. That's the conversation. My friend actually sent me a message after the billboard was covered, on TV and things like that. And just to say that, she was super proud of me and that she's like, I remember you saying this thing to me, and me being like, I don't remember exactly saying that, but I know that I did say that, I actually scrolled back in some photos and found a picture of myself and this friend and was like, yeah, actually it was probably that exact person. And I suppose for me, like saying that finding love came easy. Yeah, the person, that I was when I fell in love with my now husband loved themselves way more. Now, if I want to unpack that a little bit more, I also need to realize that the reason that I felt that self-love or that self-confidence or whatever it was that made me attractive was partly to do with diet culture, because I had a lower body weight. I was feeling hot. And therefore, when we met, I wasn't held back by the same, or this person's going to leave me. And that's partly because I previously had been in a relationship with someone who was very abusive and really, controlling and made me feel bad about how I looked. We got engaged after being together for about 4 years, and then told me, like, we can't set a date for the wedding until you weigh this many kilos. I was like, cool, I'm keeping the ring. Goodbye. There's a lot more between that, but I think the short version of that story is that I was like, bye. And six months after, thank you, 6 months after we split up, I met my husband in a bar. After spending the summer on Tinder. You're welcome. And we met in a bar, and we've been inseparable ever since, and we've been married for, 3 years, is it?
Oh, wow.
3 years, and together for 5. And look, I know that, marriage and that heteronormative kind of, kids and a house with a picket fence, which I have both of those, but it's a coincidence because we're renting, is that whatever feels good. And I think, finding love came easy in the sense that I met someone who made it easy for me to love them and for me to love myself. And so
it's the trick, right?
Right. I mean, it's not easy, and you will definitely kiss a bunch of toads or like whatever.
Oh my gosh, to say the least. Wow.
Toad. I'm like, this isn't a toad, this is an eel.
Oh my God.
What the hell?
So accurate.
Yeah. So I think that, I, in the past, would 100% have placed the opinion of someone else, especially a cis-het man, over my opinion of myself. And that's the difference. That was the difference for me when I fell in love with my husband, was that I was like, no, we won't be doing that. I make the rules around here, buddy, as far as like how I felt about myself. And I still come out and I go, does this outfit look cute? And he will say, yeah, it does, or no, it doesn't. But that's because he knows how I want to look.
Of course.
When I shaved my head to raise money for cancer, and then, I don't know if anyone else would relate to this, but once you've shaved your head, you get addicted to keeping it shaved because it feels really nice.
Oh, wow, how interesting.
You can't like stop touching it. Maybe it's just me. But I said to him, what do you think if I like shave my head again? He's like, well, it's your hair. Correct answer.
Yes.
That is the only correct answer. And I think idea that you can fall in love with someone who just is like, yeah, I don't know, do whatever you want, is really powerful and really special. And I want that for everyone who wants to find love.
Honestly, I feel like it's so rare though, because like so many of my exes have like told me what to wear, what to eat. I have like actually taken ice cream or lollies off me because they're like, you've eaten too much. Have touched my stomach saying you need to lose that. And I feel like it's rare for men to actually support women and the way they look. And it's so shocking to me that even in relationships, people who are supposed to love you feel that they have the right to talk to you like that. Like your story of your fiance just blows my mind. And I'm so glad that, you had the courage to walk away from that. Because imagine your life today if you had stayed with someone like that.
Let's not. I don't want to have a nightmare while I'm awake. Thank you.
Sorry. Didn't want to make you go down that road.
No. I find it funny. I find it really funny. Because I'm just like, oh, whatever. Good luck, dude. You'll need it. And I think just to reflect what you've said, people think that that is love because they've been taught that love is
Right.
control and abuse and manipulation, because all of these kind of stereotypical relationships are man in control, woman in submission, da 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 da. And so the patriarchy harms man as much as it harms women, because they believe these stupid ideas about, oh, a woman should be submissive to me and I should be able to tell her how much she should eat and weigh. Look, I'm not going to swear more than I already have, but I think we all know I'm saying F off to that. I don't think for a second that any guy who acts like that, even though they probably also have some sort of weird ego and God complex, doesn't secretly have insecurity. In fact, more likely to have insecurities about themselves. Again,
Oh, absolutely.
that's them. It's not me. It's them. It's not you. And
Yeah.
I think being able to really know that, like inherently, like unshakably know that it's not you, it's them, is such a great place to get to. And it takes time, but it is such a great place to get
Takes
to.
so long. Like, it really took me
Well,
ages.
I'm 36. Broke up with my ex when I was 30.
Okay, right,
So
yeah.
single at 30. I was like, it's meant to be. I relate.
So many of my listeners write to me saying they think men have become so used to airbrushing, filters on Instagram and things like surgery that they have unrealistic beauty expectations of women now too. Do you think, with everything that you do online, all the work that you contribute to, do you think society will ever reach a point where women will feel accepted and celebrated for the way they really look?
Yeah, I really do. I believe that, because I think if I didn't, I probably wouldn't be able to get out of bed in the morning. But I...
Totally.
Yes, and I am actively working on it with the people that I support myself, am supported by, and the people who I support. The way that society feels about women and the way that we will learn to view ourselves through the lens of society's expectations can only change when we all agree that's like we're not doing that anymore. And so I think when we put the pressure on, like I said before, put the pressure on the corporations that create oppression with only allowing fast fashion to be accessible to fat bodies, let's put our money towards small businesses that want to create accessible, sustainable fashion for bodies of all shapes, sizes and abilities. Let's not contribute further to the problems by being, by projecting our stuff, especially outwardly, those comments where it's someone tagging their friend being like, look at this, shut up, stop that. We won't be doing that. And I think that society will reach a point where we allow every kind of body to be accepted, when we can see all of them represented in all the places we look for inspiration, the media, television, fashion, music. When we see all of the different, look at the ways that people like Tones and I are celebrated, because they're not the same as everyone else. Billie Eilish, even though, we know that Billie Eilish also happens to look exactly like a 1940s starlet when she chooses to.
I'm completely obsessed with her, by the way. I just recently watched her documentary and she's my idol.
The best. And I think when we stop comparing Taylor and Billie, when we stop talking about, the ways that Lizzo and Cardi B and, we haven't even talked about what role racism plays in anti-fatness, but that's for another episode. I think that
to be continued.
when we stop comparing them and celebrate them all for their individual awesomeness, then we're there. And that can't happen until we agree that we're going to do it and that we commit ourselves to doing it. So not just being like, oh yeah, I follow her. Yeah, but did you listen to what I said? Because if you didn't, it doesn't make a difference. And unfollowing people who do shitty things like make racist jokes, who make fatphobic content, who are in the comments saying terrible things to people like Abby. No, unfollow, report, block, delete, goodbye. We're not doing it. It's over.
Yep, agree. And so there's so much pressure on women to be and do it all. Do you think we can have it all? Has that changed for you over the years?
I think we need to stop wanting it all. All is a lot. There's a lot to have. Can we have a bit of each of it, like over time? Can we like degustation our life and just go, this period of singledom pairs nicely with my Tinder account. However, I also like a nice rustic, 1 year relationship with, someone different. And then that goes really well with settling down and living in France. Like, why do we have to have it all at the same time? Can't we just have it all in stages and fits and starts? Can't we just do whatever we want? And if we really do think that we need to be and do it all, let's expect that from everyone. Let's bring that energy to the boardroom.
So true. Yes.
Men don't have it all. They just have what they want. And then somebody else, do you know what I mean? Like, when we talk about, that man supported his wife to stay at home from work. That is not what happened. The partner, usually the wife, obviously, again, talking about heteronormative situations, A, because I live in one, but B, because we know that the patriarchy reinforces gender bullshit all the time. That we think of when working in the home, unpaid, all day long, 24/7, as being the ones who are being supported. You couldn't be more wrong.
The men wouldn't be able to do their job if it wasn't for the women.
And the pandemic has showed us that, but we still need to do something about that. Okay, if we recognise that the unpaid economy of women's labour in the home has such value to society, why don't we do something about that?
Right.
As it doesn't matter whether we think that, there should be equal value assigned to work inside the home, work outside the home, whatever, industries, this and that. Capitalism has done what it has done. But if we already know, and the studies are showing how we need to value the work that's being done in the home, like the domestic labour, etc., we need to do something with that information. We need to not just hear that fact of, wow, that's a lot, and then just go on with our lives. And I think that's what we really need to do.
Absolutely. And so the purpose of this podcast is to create the manual for the modern woman. What are 3 pieces of advice you wish you knew starting out?
That ain't shit. And also that, no, I'm kidding. I'm kidding, but I am. Doja Cat said it. I just repeated it. And I think if I had learned my opinion of myself is the most important, that'd be like, that's my top one. Other people will hurt you because they're hurting inside. And so expect that, but also realize that it's not about you. And third thing would just be like, blue cheese and red wine are actually really good. Don't wait till you're like 28 to try them because they're delicious.
Wait, you waited until you were 28? I feel so sorry for you.
Yeah, well, I look back now, I'm like, you missed out. I was in New Zealand for the first time, being in New Zealand, and tried red wine and blue cheese in New Zealand, which, kind of ruins it for literally everywhere else. But you get that. And I tried that and was like, oh, my God. So, yeah, I think that we need to really lean into those, what we would call exotic foods early on, because you will be missing out oysters, like all of that. Exotic foods are the best.
Oysters. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Couldn't agree more. So what's next for the Bodzilla?
Well, what's next indeed? I foresee that there will be a few very cool projects coming up. Nothing I can talk about today. Hate that. I really desperately hate when people leave you hanging like that. But what I can say is that I'm not going anywhere, and that I am determined that we will do better next year than we did this year, and that we will build on that every year after that, while ever I've got the power to do that.
I love that. Okay, well, I very much look forward to seeing what you do next. Thank you so much for your time today, April. Honestly, it was such a treat having you on the Single at 30 podcast.
Thank you so much, Nicole. It's been great to chat to you.
Thank you so much for listening to this Single at 30 episode. Your body, your business. How to accept, appreciate, and love your body. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review and hit follow and subscribe. If you have any questions, feedback, or even an app idea, DM me on Instagram at single_at_30 or join the Single at 30 closed Facebook group to become part of the community where, together with other like-minded modern women, we publicly air the uncomfortable and the unspoken. As always, no topic is taboo as we search for answers to the questions most people are too ashamed to ask. This is Single at 30, the manual for the modern woman that we are writing together.